Welcome to Terminator HQ. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through the new power distribution system for the Terminator. Now, one of the things that's different compared to the previous system is this is a hybrid system. So I have actually two electrical systems. I have the traditional AGM battery and alternator that power the engine and all of the accessories in the car. And then I have the LiFePO₄ lithium batteries in the back. And I'll talk about those more in a moment. But the basis of a good sound system is a great electrical system. And the Terminator's is top notch. And let me just start at the beginning and I'll tell you how it all works. It starts when I'm at a trade show. I have this 100 amp power converter. This is just, think of it as a battery charger. It's actually a smart charger. And what that does is it maintains the AGM car battery, but more importantly, all of that excess current capability is used to charge the lithium batteries through a DC to DC smart lithium battery charger. And I'll show you that in a moment. One of the other things that's essential when doing an electrical system in a vehicle is to establish a single star grounding point. So everything should be grounded at one location. And the way I do that, I use these distribution blocks. There's 500 amps each. So the battery is connected. The battery ground is connected to this one. I also have a cable that's bolted directly to the frame of the vehicle. I have another cable that's bolted to the engine block. And then I have this double-aught power cable that goes back to the distribution system in the back of the vehicle. So I also have a positive distribution block, and it works in a similar fashion. So, you know, and I don't know if you notice this, I put this Anderson connector on here. Makes it really easy to connect this and disconnect it when I'm at shows. So anyway, it goes into the positive distribution block. The battery's connected to the positive distribution block. The alternator outputs come over here to this block also. Now, talking about alternators, this is a dual 100, this is a 190 amp alternator. Now, I put this in 1985, and in those days, you couldn't, none of these companies that make car high performance alternators even existed. So this company, Lestek, they manufactured alternators for emergency vehicles, and this was actually made for an ambulance. Now, if you saw any of my previous videos, you may recall that originally I had two of these in the car. But now that I'm using the lithium system, I do not need so much power in the front end. So I removed one to simplify the electrical system, so I only have a single dual 190. It's connected to the bus block. The output is then connected to this 300 amp circuit breaker. Now, it has a switch on it also, so if I want to completely disconnect the battery in the front, the AGM battery, from everything downstream, all I have to do is push that button and I'm now disconnected. The output, you have a cable that goes to the starter solenoid, and that also provides power to other accessories in the dash. And then I have this double-aught cable that goes to the back of the vehicle, which is where my DC to DC charger is and all of the lithium batteries are. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you, first of all, everything is heavily documented, and I have pages and pages. I have a book of this kind of stuff. So I'll actually append some of these diagrams to the end of this video if you want to check them out. Another thing that's crucial, I can't believe that the car didn't burn previously. If you take a look at it, and this is double-aught cable, look at what has happened here. What happened is one of the zip ties that I was using to keep the power cables away from the exhaust and the exhaust manifold broke, and then these cables and the wire loom that was surrounding it actually touched the hot exhaust, and it melted all the way through and shorted out. So now what I've done, I don't know if you can see this down here, if you can take a look. Down there, these double-aught cables now go through this special fiberglass silicone insulating tube. This is what it looks like. So the outside is like silicone and the inside is fiberglass. This is good for 800 degrees continuous. You can touch it against something that's 800 degrees continuously, or up to 2500 degrees periodically. So I have this tubing over my cables anywhere the cables are near the exhaust system or the exhaust manifold. So the cables come through. Now this time I'm no longer using the plastic zip ties. I'm using stainless steel zip ties, and they're super cool. I have not attached the cables yet because I want to show you some things, and I can't hook this up until I actually show it to you. So the power cables come through, and this is where they come out. Remember, I have a common ground. I have Car Plus, which is what I call the engine, the AGM battery, and then I have B Plus, which is my lithium system. Those are all tied to these bus bars. These are little distribution blocks here. So I haven't hooked them up yet completely because I wanted to show you what I like to fabricate. So if you come on over here, I like to make everything modular for two reasons. First of all, it's easier to fabricate, and it's also easier to service. So you'll see that when I build things, I tend to make them modular. Then they use all of these kind of connectors that make them easy to disconnect. What we're looking at right here is, this is the 60 amp DC to DC battery charger for the lithium batteries. It completely isolates the charging system in the front from the lithium system in the back. So that's why I need that 100 amp charger up front. I run that, it can be delivering 100 amps, and then this can deliver up to 60 amps charging to the lithium system in the back. It also, I have a lithium trickle charger. So if I'm at a show or at night, I can run this. This is 30 amp. Excuse me. And then this is the 1500 watt inverter, because there are a few components in the dash that require 120 volts AC, and this inverter provides that power. And then this cool thing, we'll do another episode on that. Now we're getting to the cool stuff. This is the stuff that nobody will ever see, except I know it's there. Oh, and by the way, I had to take all of the amps off because I couldn't remember. I had no diagrams about where all this stuff was hooked up. So I had to remove the amps, and I've actually mapped all of this out. So all of these power terminal blocks and speaker distribution blocks, I now have a good diagram of that. Not to mention the fact that for whatever reason, probably because I didn't have a hydraulic crimper at the time, I left these 6-foot pigtails on those Power 1000s. So I'm probably gonna remove 15 or 20 pounds of cable, which is gonna help me with my weight imbalance issue on the rotating amp rack. So now let's take a look at what I've been fabricating. And let's get a light over here. First of all, these are my 6 LiFePO₄ batteries, and they are rated at their 100 amp hour. You know, I've been nervous about these kind of batteries for years, although this chemistry, the LiFePO₄ chemistry, is really, really safe. But just to be sure, I installed each of those batteries in a fireproof bag, and it's also made out of layers of fiberglass and silicone. Each of the batteries also has a BMS battery management system on it, and I can access each battery from an app on my phone, and it shows all kinds of information: temperature, cell voltage, charge rate, discharge rate. I can turn the batteries on and off. Super cool. Anyway, I have 2-gauge AWG2 cable that is connected directly to a breaker, so it's only 20 inches long, and then I have these breakers that are then connected to this common bus bar. Now, breakers are really there in case of a catastrophic failure, like if the BMS system goes bad, that will prevent the cable from burning. So those are 100 amps. And I actually printed these placards on my 3D printer, which I love my 3D printer. I make all kinds of brackets and stuff with it. So what this is showing you is, what the function of the breaker is, and then what the rating of the breaker is. There's actually a lid that goes over this, but I wanted to leave it off so that you could see. And I'm still wrapping it up in here. So anyway, you have a common bus bar for the positive. This is 2-inch wide copper bar, so heavy, so expensive. And then I drilled the holes and polished it, and then coated it with clear coat, except for where the connections are. The positive bus bar then feeds the amp rack, which I'll show you in a moment. Then the middle bus bar goes to the grounds for all of the batteries, but no load is connected to that. Everything goes through this 500 amp shunt. And then I have another battery monitoring system here that tells me, it's a state of charge monitoring system, and there's a LCD display that's up front that shows me all kinds of information about my current load status, battery remaining for the whole bank. The BMS shows me what's going on for each battery. This system here shows me what the total bank is capable of. And the top bar is the actual distribution of the ground. So I have a cable, again, 00 gauge AW2/0 that feeds the amp rack, and then the other one comes from the front of the car. So anyway, the amp rack has bus bars. Now these are the original bus bars, sometime in the 80s. They're gold plated. I have a positive bus bar for the positive that feeds the amplifiers, and then there's a negative bus bar here. These are all 200 amp, or 6 of them are 200 amp fuses, and those are just for catastrophic protection. So if those lithium, when an amp fails, it's like Chernobyl. Usually when the transistors or the MOSFETs short and it starts burning, and then the PC board, that FR4 material, carbonizes, and the next thing you know, you've got a dead short. And now with those that 600 amp hour of battery, I can draw. I mean, it could deliver a massive load of current, and this is a stopgap here to protect it. Now, sometimes people are saying, well, you should talk to this guy. He knows how to do bus bar. Let me tell you something, and just don't take this the wrong way. As far as I know, I was the first person to ever use bus bars in a car. It was in Eruption in 1984, I had bus bars. And I had bus bars in the Terminator. Now, I'm not doing mass production, and I probably do it the hard way, but you're kind of teaching your grandma to suck eggs if you're telling me I should go out and ask so-and-so about how to do a bus bar. So you may be wondering how I can get in there and maintain these batteries. So I'm going to give you a demonstration. It may not be pretty. And I got to tell you a secret. When I first started doing these videos about 3 years ago, I couldn't fit. under this. And that's why I walk 8 miles a day. I'm walking 3,200 miles a year and go through a pair of shoes every 6 weeks. But I was able to trim down enough so now I can easily fit in and out. So just over the years, I guess I had one too many chimichangas. So anyway, the way that I do it is I start like this. And I just weasel my way in. And there you have it. It's actually easy to get in. It's a lot harder to get out. And I have a little step stool temporarily placed in here. I use it as a seat. So when I'm working, I can sit on that seat. So anyway, it's almost, the power distribution's almost ready to go. I'm going to start testing it tomorrow. I'm going to finish hooking it up tomorrow. And then I'm going to start putting all the audio equipment back in now that I know how to hook it up. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate your support. If you like these videos, please like them or subscribe, and don't be afraid to share it if you want to help out. So until next time, keep it loud and make me proud.